Activate your energy.
Welcome to the Activated Authors Podcast, a show where we distill the core principles of what it takes to become a happy, healthy, and productive author, no matter what stage of the journey you're at. I'm your host, Daniel Willcocks. I'm an international best-selling author, as well as an author coach, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. But most importantly, I'm a lifelong student of all things productivity, psychology, and human behaviour. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Without further ado, let's dive in. What is up, Activators? And welcome back to another episode of the, you guessed it, the Activated Authors Podcast. Oh. My name is Daniel Willcocks, and here with me every single bloody week is...
Samantha Frost. Hello, that's me. What? You all right?
I'm a bit loopy. I'll be honest. Like, I slept last night.
That's helpful.
Although I woke myself up with... I woke myself up. I can't go into this diatribe on this podcast, but I'm going to have to now because I started it. And to not follow it through would be deemed unsatisfying. Yes. So for people who have recently just tuned in or do not know this, I'm currently living with my parents in the bids to save money for a whole long story. It is what it is. I have a mother who, for whatever reason, will not accept if I'm away for a few days, it's okay to leave things plugged in. And so it's determined to constantly, every time I'm away, unplug my digital alarm clock, meaning that every time I come back, I have to reset all the alarms and everything on my digital alarm clock, despite the fact I keep telling her not to unplug my digital alarm clock. And one of the things that can happen sometimes is if I'm not fully on it, which you have to be with a digital alarm clock, is you have to turn off like it's a sunrise one, so it slowly will lighten up in the morning to kind of give you that natural thing and to curb like seasonal affective disorder. If you don't do the things properly, at midnight, it will blast your room with light, which is what happened last night. So at midnight, I had to wake up. I didn't have to wake up. I was woken up by my light to then go back to the alarm clock, to turn it off, to silently curse my mother, to then go back to sleep. Diatribe over. It wasn't as satisfying as I thought it would be. Sam, over to you. How's things?
Yeah. Pretty much the same as last week. I am not silently cursing your mother.
You should be. Karen.
I do feel sorry for her that she is a white woman named Karen. It's unfortunate in this day and age.
Because we met a Karen this week.
Karen in the wild, as Miles said.
And I was telling her about the Karen, and she was very grumpy that I'd called her a Karen.
She was a Karen.
Oh, she was like the queen of Karens.
So just very quickly, because again, we can't not. We were heading to Hobbycraft and McDonald's for Miles, giving him a little treat because he's been doing really well on Dan's suggestion, which was very sweet of him. And the sat-nav took us down a road that was closed, and then it was like, oh no. So it redirected us to a single lane road that was like, I don't know how best to describe. If you think of like a really old, quaint country feel, like it wasn't so much as a road as the houses stopped. And it was the gap in between the front doors facing each other. And apparently everyone's sat-nav had sent them this way. So there was like 6 cars maybe facing forward one way, and then about 20 cars facing forward the other way. So the cars are literally like facing off.
What we like to call gridlock.
Yeah. And there was one woman that was at the back of the less cars queue that was insistent that she would not move, even though the other 2 cars behind her had realized that like if they moved, the other couple of cars in front of them could reverse out, then all that traffic could come and then they could go if they needed to. And any car that went to turn down saw what was going on and was like, nope, and like left. She was insistent that she would not reverse out because she lived on this road. And how dare people do this? Do they not know it's a single lane road? To which Dan was like, no, because at this point, Dan, being Dan, had like parked the car on someone's drive so we weren't blocking the road, gotten out and was like, he walked to her car, and you just immediately you could see she was ready to like rip his face off because, you know, a tall guy's getting out of the car walking towards her. She's expecting rage, but this is Dan. So Dan walks towards, like, hands out, like, no, I'm not coming to shout. I'm not coming to anything. Let's just have a discussion. Eventually, after much, like,
having 20 minutes, and she did not look me in the eye once.
It was ridiculous. Like, her house was like 5 or 6 doors up, so she refused to move. And it's like, you're making yourself later to your own house. At one point, her husband, I assume, fed up with the entire situation, just got out of the back with like a couple of boxes of like magnums and stuff and just walked to the house to put them in the freezer. And eventually, like, Dan had to like, he was playing traffic warden, so like he went up to the other end, was like, stop, right, okay, you can come, right, you go. And literally no one else had gotten out, so if it wasn't for Dan, we'd still be there now.
Yes.
And it was actually
filming this from our car.
Yeah. And poor Miles is like being taken out on a treat, being stuck on some random person's drive, like slowly dying of hunger. Not actually, obviously. There
were magnums.
But what was really actually very nice about that situation is that Miles got to see someone handle a situation that could have very easily been handled very differently, handle it as a calm, like, mature adult. I didn't tell you this actually, but there was a couple of times where Miles was like, do you think I should get out and help? Do you think she'll stop yelling if she sees a child? And I was like, it's okay. Like,
no, I mean, most of her anger was driven at a random van that was about 4 cars forward. And it was like, it's his fault. I was like, it's not. It's his fault. And then the minute he moved,
what about the 17 cars behind him?
Yeah. No. So there we go. Welcome to this podcast about writers. But it's always fun. How's my week been? I have been doing the things. I'm doing the stuff. I'm enjoying the stuff I'm involved in at the minute, because I very much hit a crossroads hard a week ago. Like, I think I might have mentioned it on the podcast last week, but obviously, like, the whole hospital incident in March changes things slightly. But I'm still very, very aware that I'm still winding down a lot of things that I started. Yeah. And so I have, and I won't say too much about this because it's not been concluded yet, but there are a couple of things that involve other people and like groups that I'm in that I've had to literally be like, I'm out. And it's not necessarily because I want to be out of those things. Like, I love the idea of what they are and what they entail and everything else, but I've just really reached a firm understanding in myself that I really like less truly is more. And, you know, I'm currently back with family. My sister's pregnant, due to have a baby in the next sort of month or so. And there really is a sense at the minute of like just wanting to be around people and being with people in real life. And so much of what I do is virtual that I'm peeling away from a lot of that stuff. So that's kind of been very much on the agenda. And because of that, I've put a lot of like production stuff in place for a story I'm working on for the other stories. I sent off the Nowhere line to the publisher for them to read. So hopefully, you know, that could be like 2 or 3 months before I hear back, but like, you know, see what happens there. I am halfway through my cock, which is cool. So for context,
how is that taking you?
It's quite a long book. But for context, people that don't know what that is, it's my new novella called Cock. Like, you heard correctly first time around. It's meant to be deliberately evocative, provocative,
inflammatory.
Oh, I hope not. Get a cream for that. But I'm finally like, this is the third version of the story I've tried to write, and it's the first one that feels correct. And I'm learning a lot about my process along this way. Like, are you okay?
I'm just laughing at the idea that like you've attempted to mold 2 cocks before this, but they didn't feel right. But this third one,
couldn't get a handle on them. They just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, I'm making progress in that story, which is quite cool. I'm settling more into the new day job that I have, which, God bless it, is still very, very flexible for me, which is fantastic, because it means that like we went up on Wednesday to go see Bailey in the school play thing. That was like awesome to like, just to have the option of doing that and going to that without him to like ask permission. And so yeah, like things are trucking along. I've still got my cough, which is what it is. It's not getting worse. It's not getting better. It's just there.
Yeah.
I'd like it to go. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at. Read a couple of cool books. I feel like I'm just finding things now. What's going on in Activated Authors Land? Guess what, everyone? Discord is now free to access for anyone who listens to this podcast, anyone who's on the Facebook group, anyone who wants to get involved and join us over in the community. So again, for context, our community has basically been behind a paywall for the last 2.5 years, I think 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah.
And there is still a section of the community that's behind a paywall, which is if you want access to like live sprints and all the extra bonus stuff. But if you want to come and join a community that is just genuinely interested in supporting you, in which you can ask questions, speak to other writers, and specifically one of the things that I think is the coolest in there, which I didn't know I could do, but now is in place, is when you sign up, which again is absolutely free to sign up. You get invited over to the Discord, and when you jump into the Discord, you can pick which genre channels you'd like to be a part of. So you'll have access to all the standard channels that everyone has standard access to, but we've also got channels for horror, for fantasy, for sci-fi, for thriller, for historical, for nonfiction. Basically, any of the big global channels we have, genres, we have a channel for now. So you can actually go in there and start meeting other authors within your space, and all of them with the Activated Authors ethos behind you. And then if you love the Discord and if you love everything that's going on in there, you can jump over and become an Activated Authors Plus member, and you can join me and Sam on sprints every week, and you can join us doing
live eyes.
Exactly, and it's terrifying, and it's wonderful, and it's euphoric, and you should be there, and why aren't you there? So all of that is now officially in place, and in case you can't tell, I'm very, very excited for it, because as we're recording this, I haven't yet told anyone. This is going live tomorrow, which will be Monday the 10th. So if you're listening to this, activatedauthors.com, which is straight at the top, or you can just go to activatedauthors.com/join, follow the sequence, it'll take you over there. But I'm also about to spam everyone that's on our mailing lists and everything else. So there'll be people jumping in the next few weeks to get involved and become Activated Authors, which I'm thrilled about.
I'm also very excited about this. I would just like to very quickly, as you last week said about your voice, if I seem a little bit less bubbly or chippy or chirper, that's not a word, than usual. I'm really going through it at the minute, and I'm doing my very best.
Like Ash Ketchum.
Sure.
So I'll be bubbly for us both.
Well, I assumed that's why. Well, I'm not. I don't think I'm being a downer. I'm doing my very best not
being a Debbie Downer.
That'll happen when we stop recording, and you have to deal with my true face. But right now, for the
Make
people,
it happen. For the people, by the people. Yeah. So the Discord is free. As I say, just activatedauthors.com. All the info's there. And also, I'm really, really hoping, because I'm working on this a lot today, I'm hoping that by tomorrow, I will have some more stuff live on the website for author website design, because I'm very much enjoying building authors' websites at the minute. And I've had a whole portfolio of people who I've done over the last few months, people's websites who I've done over the last few months. I've got a few extra ones I'm working on at the minute, but I am looking to begin opening this up to people who want to get involved, want to get a website done from myself, whether that's genre or nonfiction or whatever you want that to look like. I mean, I don't have many expectations of this. I'm just enjoying it as a process. So I'm excited to see what happens.
You have Tintin hair.
I do have Tintin hair.
It's making me very happy.
I've deliberately been keeping my head down like that so that like it doesn't show, but like, yeah, it's fully
Tintin.
Ridiculous. I've been trying to like tuck it away and it's not working.
Where's your Snowy?
She's downstairs.
Aww.
I was having a cuddle with her this morning. One other thing, Flash Fiction February updates still in progress. Okay, on to the next stuff. So what's something that you might have enjoyed this week?
I forgot we did this. This is new. And I completely blanked.
Would you like me to go first? Because I've got a thing.
Please.
Where's my thing? I can't remember if I shouted this out. I might have already. Actually, I think I did this last week as well.
Look.
It's the Legend Planner.
Yeah, you did. And it really now seems like we're sponsored by Legend Planners.
Yeah, I'm going to double shout this out anyway, because I like, not only is it beautiful, and not only is it functional for anyone from the business boardroom to the office space.
God, why are you making this sound like an advert?
But like, just genuinely, like, it's the first planner in a long time that I'm showing a blank page, so not great for what I'm about to say, but like that I've actually been using, and I've actually like found the mechanism to keep updated with it, because like, you know, it's got I will show empty pages so I don't show, but like quick flash, I'm writing in it. But you've got like your daily stuff in here. At the top right, you've got like a little habit tracker. You've got like your biggest task. You've got like personal and work stuff. But a certain amount of boxes so you don't overload yourself. It's got a little area to do a review each week, which I do. But then also like all these little tabs and things link back to pages that you've done earlier, where you can look into your monthly reviews, so you can make sure all your goals are matching across your months. And then it's also like right at the beginning, which is obviously like I've spoken a lot about this before, but like what it all comes down to is like what are your 3 month goals, what are your big goals, and it's kind of like a cascade of like the big stuff down to the small stuff. And it's just working for me. It's just working for me. So again, like pretty very similar to the Clever Fox stuff, but for whatever reason, Legend Planner available at a store near you. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. I'm going to be honest. I'm really struggling to like. I'm struggling to think of something. I know there's been moments and things where I will have smiled and enjoyed, but I don't really remember much of last week. And I kind of feel like I've been in a bit of a disassociated fugue state this weekend, which I'm still definitely not out of.
May I mention your non-meat stuff?
Sure.
I did it.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm really proud of you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm I don't know how long it's been now. What, like 3 weeks, maybe?
At least, yeah. I think.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm not eating meat. I've wanted to not eat meat for a very long time. I've tried a couple of times before, very unsuccessfully. And Dan had mentioned, I think it kind of, there was a kickstart moment when we were at the Paramore gig, because before they came on, there's like a video, you know, in the arenas they have like the big screens so you can see the artists no matter where you are. And it was Paramore, like a pre-recorded thing where they were supporting a charity to help minimize the environmental impact of big meat, so like beef and things like that produce an incredible amount of like methane gas and things like that, and the processing of, you know, the meat, the factories, all of the things has a huge environmental impact, not to obviously mention animals being born to be killed for meat and things. But I don't want to get onto like a moral high horse, because there's certainly no room for me there. But yeah, it was that kind of, it re-put it into my head. And it's like I've been able to somehow live in this duality of loving animals and then like just, I don't know, blissfully being unaware, even though I knew exactly what I was eating. And then you'd mentioned it because we saw that thing and was like, we should do that, because it was about just having there's a challenge, wasn't it, for like a month to one day. Was it one meal a day or one day a week? I can't remember. Like I think it was a meal a day for a month.
I mean, that's breakfast, isn't
it? I think it meant like a dinner or a lunch.
Yeah.
To be completely like plant-based. And we discussed it at the time, like that sounds like a really good thing. And then yeah, a few weeks back you'd mentioned it and I was like, I want to do this with you because it is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And yeah, I haven't eaten any meat since. I'm loath to put any labels on myself yet. It is very early in the process. And I think like I'm just trying to be really gentle with myself, because it's a huge change, it's a huge shift. And right now I'm just focusing on not consuming meat and trying to increase with varying levels of success, fruit and vegetables into my diet, which is difficult, especially for me who at the minute is really not eating well at all, especially when I'm on my own. I didn't eat anything yesterday. No, I tell a lie. At 3 o'clock this morning, well, technically that's the day. So, yeah, I didn't eat anything yesterday.
There you go.
Because, you know,
yeah,
I just didn't. So yeah, there we go.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
But yeah, and just to like reiterate, it's, you know, we're not casting judgment on anyone either way. And I've definitely eaten like a few meals of meat over the last few weeks. But we both said, like, I think the thing for me is exploring the vegetarian options, but I don't like the label of vegetarian because I do enjoy meat, and I do, you know, every now and then, like, you know, if it's an occasion or something else, I want to have that option, because I feel like a lot of the times with sort of vegetarian, like veganism more understandably, but vegetarian, it's very like black and white. Like you're a vegetarian, and if you eat anything that isn't, like, you're like a sinner and it's a horrible thing. So I'm not in any way like labeling myself a vegetarian. I'm just seeing what's out there. Like we spent some time at the vegetarian aisle, like looking at different foods and things, which is quite interesting, and just trying some different things, because there are some stuff that is just not like fit for human consumption, and then other stuff that is beautiful. So yeah, it's a journey, but I think I'm kind of in the same camp of you as you, of like, I've seen quite a lot of content the last few weeks of things that irks me, and I firmly believe that if you go like the way that we're wired and built is to consume meat and plants and all this kind of stuff, but the question then comes to, how do you source your food? And
well, yeah, and like when, you know, yes, it's true. We were hunter-gatherers and, you know, all the rest of it.
This isn't hunter-gathering.
No, and also like back in those days, there wasn't like 7 billion people. There was like 7.
Yeah.
And they were all called Ugg.
Yeah.
And they went
one
out,
guy called Bug.
And they knocked whatever they could find over the head. And, you know, yes. But no, it's yeah, just there's a lot of like personal reasons and stuff, and I'm the same. Like, I have not asked or insisted that Miles do the same, because it's a very personal choice, but I'm finding it easier to walk past a field of sheep now.
Wins from the community. So this week we're celebrating the one and only Kiz, who has 3 wins. The first one being that they've gotten back into their reading after a slump, which is always nice to rekindle that fire.
It's like coming out of like
rekindle.
Nice. It's like oxygen, isn't it? After being underwater for so long, just that like, I can't get enough.
Especially when you can get a good book. That's definitely the clincher. Their last day at work was on Friday, so they started a new job on the Wednesday, which gave them some time to write and to be free for a few days. And they've also planned their Q3 goals, including the small steps to get there. So great job, kids. Making it happen.
Awesome.
Perfect. Okay, so into today's topic, less so than a question. Today's topic, brought to you by Daniel Willcocks, is art versus commerce. So, like, I feel like this discussion really is kind of the backbone of how people view the things that they make and what they're doing. And I feel almost like it's very much the petrol that gets poured on fires when artists are arguing about selling out and, you know, making money and all this kind of stuff. So I kind of want to just throw it over to you and say, you know, what are your thoughts currently on this debate of art versus commerce, especially as it relates to writing and publishing books?
So I'm glad that you said currently, because if you'd have asked me this question a couple of years ago, my answer would have probably been quite different. I think it is something that creative people struggle a lot with. And it ties into, I think, a couple of things, actually. Imposter syndrome is a big one. This romantic idea of what it is to be an artist, to be an author, and also just like societal pressure. And I think the first thing to consider is, like, if you are concerned about selling out, you have to define what that means for you. Because, like, people, and I say this to my son all the time, like, no matter what you do in your life, people will talk about it. Not everyone, because as much as we would like to think it, we are not the center of the universe, and most people are just indifferent to our existence.
Aww.
I know, but like, there's over 7 billion people on the planet, and most of them don't know you're alive.
8 billion now.
Oh, Jesus. And like, most of them don't know you're alive. And the ones that do, not all of them will care. And for the ones that do care, either positively or negatively, they're all going to have their own opinions and their own feelings on what you should be doing with your time. Whether that is in support of you, whether that is them for some reason secretly trying to plot your downfall or copy everything you do, whatever it is, like, there is always going to be other voices that have opinions on what you should be doing. So you might as well be doing the shit that you want to do. So this is what I say to Miles, like, because he gets sometimes, I'm not going to use direct examples because it's his life and I don't feel right. So
yes,
say that, for example, he had a bright pink backpack. And he loves this bright pink backpack and he's wanted one for a really long time. And then he went to school and everyone was like, that's weird. Why do you have a bright pink backpack? And then he came home and was like, I want to burn this. I want to cut it to pieces. Again, this is all, none of this happened. Just want to make this very clear.
it was blue.
It was blue, yeah. And I had this discussion with him, and it's the same with our art, our creativity. Society has its own expectations of, number one, what an artist is, and number two, who should get to be an artist. And the people that are allowed to be artists are usually the people that already are and are famous, but weren't allowed to be artists before they got there. So like, there's that. But again, like, you have to define what selling out is for you, because other people will have opinions and they will tell you that you've sold out. They will tell you that you've changed. And usually what like that means is that like they don't get to see you as much, or you put boundaries in place, or like you've changed because you're growing and they can't relate because they haven't changed because there's it's always their problem as to why that is a thing. So define what selling out is for you. So for me specifically, this idea of selling out, which I think is like a bit gross anyway, like just the term and stuff, but for me it is creating something, or putting my name on something if I haven't created it, that I don't agree with, that I am not proud of, that I don't think serves anybody. I don't believe that there is value in it, and charging money for that. To me, that selling out is putting something out that I have signed off on that is not aligned with who I am, not aligned with my values, and isn't of the quality that I would want it to be, and charging people for it. That to me is selling out. So I think that's important, just off the bat. And then I think it's important to just take a look at yourself. And that came out harsher than it meant to, because I mean, also, look at yourself.
Look at yourself, Sandra.
But I mean, in the sense of like imposter syndrome. So a lot of the time we think that, you know, we shouldn't be charging for stuff because we don't have that confidence in ourselves. But actually, like, just because you are writing books instead of being an accountant, I love an accountant. My accountant is your mechanic. Accountants and plumbers, they're the first thing that comes to my head. Like, it doesn't make what you're doing any less valid or valuable. The world could exist without art, true. It wouldn't be a world that people would want to live in. Art, and specifically story, is the oldest way that we have communicated as humans. And I think we touched on this on our first episode together,
yes,
of this kind of format, is that it is a fundamental need for us to tell stories. And if you are prepared to pay for a course, for example, or you are prepared to, I don't know, upgrade your laptop or buy a book to like improve your craft, or put in that time, you know, start logging those 10,000 hours. Thank you, Macklemore. Now I've got that stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Then you already in some way are believing in yourself, because if you didn't think there was point to it, you wouldn't invest money, and more importantly, the most like valuable asset that we have, which is time. So like, I think if there is that thing of like, you know, that imposter syndrome around charging for it, that's something to look at. But generally speaking, she says after waffling, I think art and commerce is a Venn diagram, and everyone's middle is different. And that was it. So me and Dan were watching an episode of The Great British Sewing Bee, and a very talented sewer left, and we were having this conversation because they were right to be the one to go, and the reason they left is because they couldn't balance art and commerce. I mean, it's not commerce specifically in this instance, but
it was whenever a fucking task.
Yeah, whenever they were given a brief, they wouldn't fulfill the brief. They would be wildly creative over here, and not fulfill the brief. And when they started doing this, at least the things they were doing were very well executed. But as the season got on, it just got wilder and wilder, and they weren't even executing the things that they were making to their potential.
Yeah. Because
you need the thing about creativity is you need structure and you need boundaries. Otherwise, you're just wanking in the wind.
Thank you for that.
I'm not wrong though, right? Like, you need some kind of idea. That's why we draft things. That's why we have ideas, and we whittle them down. And like, if you don't want to sell stuff that you make, you don't have to. There's that. Sorry, my brain is all over the place. So like,
no, I'm really impressed that you can like just continue after, you know, wanking in the wind. Yeah. Well, that's what we used to say at drama school. When someone's just like, they're on stage and they're singing and they've got their eyes closed, and then like the only person that's enjoying themselves is them. It's vocal wanker. Yeah, there you go.
They're just having a wank on stage, and we all have to watch. No one gave their permission. It's true. Like, you need.
I really have to be careful how I laugh so I don't cough.
You need some kind of boundaries. Like, if I just sat you down in like a sandbox that had all the things.
Okay.
I was like, wank into the wind. No, sat you into a big sandbox like that had all the different things that you could ever possibly need to create anything, and said, like, you've got 2 weeks, make something incredible, go. I guarantee most people would fall to fucking pieces, because what does that mean? What can I use? Can I use it all? Of course I can't use it all. We need some kind of structure, project to project, to know what's, you know. So like, if you are wanting to sell stuff, it's important to have that kind of idea. If not, cool, you do you, boo. Like, go over there, enjoy your like hobbying away and doing all the different things and making the things that you want to make. Like, but I don't think there is anything wrong with loving what you do, loving your craft or crafts, depending on, you know, what you are interested in, putting that time in, putting that investment in, and then making a product to sell. I mean, obviously, when it comes to anything that you want to put out onto a market, you need to have an audience in mind. So that becomes then tricky, because people feel like, well, I'm selling out because like it's not what I want to make. But in the specific is the general. And I know, like Dan, for example, was when you talk about like When Winter Comes and Sins of Smoke and all that kind of thing, the person you often write for is yourself.
Yes.
Because as much, again, as we'd like to believe, we are not unique creatures. We are not these beautiful, like, perfect things that is a completely unique set of. If you like something, someone else will. That's just how it works. So like, if you get specific about who you want to put your art out to, even if that is for yourself, you will find an audience. I have rambled. I need water. Go.
Question answered. Thanks for joining us for this week's podcast. No, like you
I'm all
raised,
over the place.
no, you raised like a hell of a lot of good points. Like I think the key thing for me when it comes to this subject is, as you say, it's integrity. Like if you are creating something that you don't believe in for people that you don't care about, just for some, nondescript gain, like for me, that's selling out. Like and again, as you say, these are all personal answers. For me, like the whole premise of art and why we write and everything is, there can be a want for commerce, there can be a want for money, and the creations that you make, for me, a lot of the time are therapy. And like art is just a fantastic way to view the world, to process things, to create stuff that doesn't have to make sense. When I first started writing, I joined a local writing group. And this was before I had any intention of publishing a book or anything else. Like it was a hobby. And I was like, I did a lot of English and stuff at school. I really wanted to do that. And I found this group locally that used to meet once a month. And I'd go to these sessions, and they weren't like your sort of critique writing sessions. They were like, for 15 minutes, here's an exercise. And we'd all do the exercise. We'd all read out the work. Then we'd move on. Next exercise. And it was about 2-3 hours of this every week. And I really enjoyed it because I was, oh God, how old would I have been? I would have been like 22, maybe. About 22 when I started going to the group. And I met some amazing people, and like a lot of them older than me, because there was a lot of sort of like retired English teachers and sort of that sort in the group. Like, again, lovely people. And I'd do the exercises, I'd go home, and I got to a point where I got bitten by the bug and I was writing more at home. And that served me for a while. That was just a group of people making art, just meeting as a collective to enjoy the thing that we enjoy. The minute I started actually publishing books and writing books and getting better at what I did and writing faster, they changed. So they viewed me less as an artist and more as someone seeking the commerce, even though like I had my reasons for wanting to write the books and I was writing the books myself. But because that didn't fit in with their model, like they were never nasty about it. There was a couple of like moments where I was a bit like, oh, that was a bit like they're clearly not happy that I'm doing this sorts of stuff and like I'm actually publishing all the things. And again, that's not a judgment on them. It was
just feel the temperature change.
Yeah, and there was a very different view on me. So I left because it wasn't serving me anymore. And I still keep in touch with the people I got on really well with in that group. But things change, and that's part of the process. Like depending on the stuff that you really enjoy, what you find, the communities you discover, all that kind of thing. But it all comes down to, for me, as most things do, like what is your why? So take the integrity stuff out of it, because that, like, we established that for us specifically is quite fundamental. But like, you can create art and you can be happy. You can, if you just want to use it as a palette to experiment and to have fun and to escape and to just shut yourself away and just lose yourself in a painting or in like knitting or writing, whatever that is, like that's awesome. And like, kudos to you, and just go and enjoy that guilt-free, just have fun, just fucking do the thing.
Yes.
If you enjoy the art that you do and you feel like there's a place for it in which people will be happy to exchange money to view more of what you do, fucking hell yeah, like go for it. Kudos to you as well. Like there is no right answer to this, which I think is kind of the bottom line here. Like I've seen a lot of people who wrote stuff just in their spare time, were passionate about, and then they started writing like short stories and articles for submission and stuff. And then just the feedback they got from other people is like, oh my God, I can't believe you're selling out and doing this. And it's like, it's not up to you. Like when you're looking at this subject, often when people feel friction about who they are and how they feel in their own integrity, it's because of the opinions of other people. And often those other people aren't the people that you're trying to reach, nor are they the people you should anyway listen to. If you are comfortable in what you're doing, if you are happy creating this stuff and choosing and going down the path that you're going down on, that really is all that matters. Like, there have been a lot of times along my writing journey where I've pivoted, or where like friends have kind of like judged me, especially early on. And it's when you're in the incubator that's really the time when you're tested.
Because they can turn that switch so quickly and it's dead.
Yep. And a few times I posted on Facebook, like, give me some prompts and I'll write a story. I don't know why I did it. It was just for fun. And, it was a mix of people who were encouraging and there were a mix of people who were derisive, and you ignore the derisive voices because who the fuck are they? Like, they don't matter. You don't have to talk to these people. Like 8 billion people in the world, find your people. And yeah, you get tested as you get bigger, but I like the bigger, and I hate saying stuff like this, but the bigger my readership has grown and the more people have seen my art, the less that is a problem.
Yes.
And not only because of the fact that I'm published and I am tested, and even now, like I know that like each work is tested individually. Like no work is ever like, it's not a constant stream of this is better than the last thing. Like it's all over the place. But it's rare these days that people are like, you're selling out, because I've fought that journey and I've established where I'm at. And I want to reach out to like the person that's sitting there and they're like, oh, I kind of want to write, but like, you know, this kind of stuff, just do it. Like it sounds so simple and like unhelpful, but like it is as I say with writing, like it's that easy and that's hard. Like how do you write a book? You sit down in a chair and you type. Like obviously there's paragraph lengths and, you know, adjectives and clauses, all this kind of stuff happens, but like the fundamental thing is you sit down and you write and you get better and you get better and you practice and you put in the reps and you get your 10,000 hours. And it's exactly the same with this. Like if you want to be an artist, quote artist, in the sense of I just want to create shit for myself, go ahead, do that. If you want to be there isn't really a word, is there, for like
a professional artist? I
guess so. I guess professional.
That's the only term I can think of.
Yeah. Like
in the sense of for this context, professional meaning
in exchange for money.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not using it to comment on the quality.
Amateur versus professional. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But no, like absolutely. And yeah, I just think, you know, kudos to anyone that goes down this journey and tries and tries and tries and keeps going, because you can also switch and go in between. Like, you know, I've personally found the more books I've written, the ones I'm proudest of are the ones that I've allowed for myself to be an artist, as opposed to like, I totally agree with you about, you know, the confines of, you know, in order to create art, there needs to, it's mess within structure. Like it helps to define the thing that you're doing. Like, you know, if you're, and again, like I come back to painting just because I think it's like a very real visual example, but like if you're a painter who's working with watercolors, already you've given yourself a structure, you've given yourself boundaries, because how far can you push a watercolor? How far can you push pastels and oils and all that kind of stuff?
And that's where the fun and breakthroughs come from, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can use like I'm not a painter. You can use like washi paint and sequins, and you can throw like talcum powder, like exactly, like, oh man, those talcum powder watercolor artists,
you're on it.
They're proper kicking it off right at the cutting edge of trends. But yeah, it's I think, to circle it all back around, because you made like a hell of a lot of like very, very good points.
Because I wouldn't shut up.
Is integrity is just the bottom line.
Yeah.
Like I've had it before. Like, you know, I won't say specifics, but it's one that it happened. I'm not hugely proud of it, but it happened. I got pulled into a bit of a pyramid scheme, and the stuff that I was selling, I didn't give a shit about. I didn't care about. And every time I pitched in anything else, it was just horrible.
Yep.
It was just horrible because, like, you know, maybe they did do the things that they said they were going to do, but I didn't care. Like it wasn't. I was doing it for the money. Whereas I can go out into the street for 5 years of my life and pitch to people to do chlamydia tests, which again, for people joining me, that was an old job that I used to have to do. Like, and it was one of the most fun things I ever had, because I really believed in what we were doing. Like, you know, we took the chlamydia rate from 1 in 9 to 1 in 16 in like a couple of years. So,
which is amazing.
Like, yeah, you could see the societal impact of the things you were doing with like sexual health. So, you know, if you believe in the thing that you're doing, just do that, whatever that is.
Yeah. I've got 2 points that occurred to me while you were talking, that like springing off what you said. Just very quickly on the like confines of creativity. Number one, I would say that necessity breeds creativity. If you have all the budget in the world, you don't need to be creative. You need an airplane, you buy an airplane.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have to, I don't know, put on a play or like literally get to the other side of the world and you don't have the budget, that's when your mind starts to work. That's where imagination, creativity comes in. So there's that. And as Glennon Doyle says, like, I can be wildly creative between exactly 10 o'clock and 11:30 a.m. every day. Like she needs to put, that's, you know, that's, so like boundaries are important. And the other thing is adults love to ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And say someone said, I want to be an electrical engineer. Like, I love the way electric moves engineered things, and I really want to be that. And they're like, oh, that's good, isn't it? And then they go through school and that's what they want to be, and that's what they want to be, and they work hard at it. And then they go to college and they do the subjects they need for that. And then, like, they've worked so hard and they put so much time and effort in. And then they get into the dream university that they wanted to go to, and they graduate with like first degree. They're come to the loud comer. They're number one on everything. Thank you. Number one at everything. I don't know what it's bloody called. I didn't go to university. I went to drama school.
They're the people that wank into the wind, didn't they?
Yeah.
This is. We're gonna have to put explicit on this episode.
Yeah. And then they land their dream job, and finally, all of that dreaming, all of that planning, all of that work, that stress, that tension that they have poured into this dream for whatever reason comes to fruition, and they land this job and they've got it. No one turns around to that person and says, well, you fucking sold out. So why is it different? It isn't. It's just other people's opinions.
Yes.
There's always going to be noise.
I don't know if you want to touch on, I know one of the things that we speak about a lot is the inner versus the external locus of validation. Because I know it's quite easy for me, and like just a bit of a shout out for the next couple of weeks. Like, I'm pretty sure like on the Joanna Penn podcast that I'm on in a few weeks, I spoke a little bit about this, so tune into that. But I'm it's not lucky, like I put a lot of work into getting to this point, but I've trained myself to be very internally validated, meaning that other people's opinions and influences don't affect me as strongly as they do other people. Like, I'm at a point like in my life where I realize how ridiculously individual my life situation is, like in all aspects. I understand that I write differently to other people in the way that I do, even though I'm still within horror. Like, you know, individualism is one of my things. Like, I just get that each person is a totally different person with their own life circumstances. Like, if you're walking down the street and you think 5 people are looking your way, those 5 people don't know who you are. They never will know who you are, because they're not thinking about you, they're thinking about themselves. So for me, I've done a lot of self-work to understand that if I want to do something, I'll just do it. Like, you know, I fancy crocheting. So this week, Rob Howley was teaching me how to crochet, and I've made a bit of a square. Like, if this had been me 10 years ago, maybe a bit longer than that, like, I had friends, I had family who saw that kind of activity as more feminine, and I would have been lesser inclined to do that, because whatever. But like, you know, it's a thing that I just want to learn. I just want to, like, I like learning new skills. This is the thing, like, I can make some shit. That's cool. And so I've done a lot of self-work to get myself in that position, but I realize that's not where everyone is. And I know a lot of people who, like, you know, where, even if it's like your mum or your dad or someone who's super close to you, whose opinion you super value, not saying there's anything against that, it's a lot more difficult to make these choices. If you know that, like, one thing that I see a lot is couples who their partner is maybe like the big breadwinner and puts in all this time, and then you feel selfish for having your couple of hours to do your art thing because it's not contributing to the household, all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts as they are at the minute on sort of locus of validation?
So I think a lot of creative people, and this certainly isn't exclusive to creative people, but I do think that you'll find, probably if you looked at like the stats, a lot of creatives have external locus of validation, meaning it's not enough for them to be happy with what they've done. And in fact, sometimes you can't be fully happy until someone has said, good job, here's a cookie. I fall into that camp. Like, again, I am neither proud nor ashamed of it. It just is what it is. I would like to get to a point in my life where I am more leaning towards inner validation, just because I think it's a healthier way to be, because you're closer to your center, your integrity, your truth. But it is difficult, I think, if you have an external locus of validation, specifically at the beginning of any journey, because there really is that who am I? And if you are validated by yourself, you can have that self-talk a lot easier than if you don't. And I know for me, you know, I had a very difficult upbringing, and we'll leave it at that. But it was like I've been through a lot. Like, by the time I was 19, I think I've probably lived a lot more life than most people at 80. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes on internally, because an external locus of validation doesn't just refer to in that moment. It, for me, I hear voices of the past, and they will pull at me and they will claw at me. And I think I am not alone in that. I think there is a lot of people, and like I say, specifically creatives, that have that struggle of not only having to overcome their own shit, but then having to deal with the shit that was put on them and hearing those voices. And it is difficult. It makes it very difficult. There are like coping mechanisms and strategies around that. For example, just having, if you are fortunate enough to have a group of people that you trust, just to share that with them and just say, look, this, you know, I'm thinking of doing this, but X, Y, and Z from wherever is, you know, telling me, and they can help you with that.
activatedauthors.com/join.
It's free.
Yeah. Also, just I not to sort of waylay you, but just to qualify what I'm saying, like, I don't want that to sound disingenuous. Our community is fantastic at that.
Yes.
Yeah. They
are. They genuinely are. And so yeah, it is difficult. And I think like Dan is saying, you know, everyone is like on their own journey and has their own story, but like it doesn't mean that it is unique. And I think finding other people is a lot easier than we think. Like, once we manage to get over that first like hurdle of scratching someone's surface and then realizing that, you know, we're more similar than we thought, there are just, I mean, just go through any interviews with like famous singers, famous artists, and they will, like, most of them have a very similar kind of background, in the sense of they never felt good enough, they needed validation, they weren't popular, they needed that help. And that's where it comes from. And that's the drive, is that, like, I want to be loved. I desperately wanted to be famous when I was a kid, because I just wanted someone to say, like, wow, she's incredible, because I wasn't getting "you're good enough" from where I was. I wasn't even getting like "you're allowed to be here." You know, I wasn't, there was nothing. So I think external validation can take you far, in the sense of to push you.
Yeah.
Because, you know, again, some people push against it, like fucking watch me kind of vibe. But it can also cripple you.
Yeah. Well, this is it. The amount of stories of celebrities who have followed that path to fame because they believed that would fill some kind of hole that they had for not feeling good enough, and then getting to the point where they are ridiculously famous and that hole is still there. Like, it's such a long exercise. It's a lifelong venture. And I think that, you know, I strongly believe the majority of people will fall into the external locus of validation thing. And I certainly did for like a long time. I think one of the ways to work towards overcoming that, which is again like long and arduous, is compounding wins. Like, the reason I'm certainly where I am right now is because I'm tested. And I've said this earlier, but like, it really is a thing. Like, you have to test yourself, you have to see what you're good at, you have to be okay with failing and be open to the fact that that's okay, because you know that you're not done. But I, you know, when I was writing my first story at college, like, I was desperate for the approval of the teacher because I thought I could be a good writer. I had no evidence for it. But I was desperate for her to go, this is really good, and to give me the mark that I wanted. And, that happened. Win, check. Okay, I've done something good. When I came round to publishing my first book, my first story, I had no plans of showing it to loads and loads of people. It was a case of, I think every story I wrote up until I published that first book, because I wrote a few, like I say, on Facebook and just write like on Wattpad and things. I do genuinely believe that my attitude of, oh, well, I've read it, it doesn't really matter if it does that great, like I'm happy with it. There's a defense mechanism in that, because it's straight away going like, well, I've done what I need to, fuck y'all. Which in a way is correct, but at the same time, like, it's probably not the healthiest, because you still need to be open to criticism and to feedback to improve what you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think that external falls into the majority camp. And I think bringing it around to, again, like art versus commerce, that's what a lot of people are scared of. Like art, you can almost do hobbled away, just hidden and whatever. But there are a lot of people that feel like the minute you start selling that, and actually there was, this always makes me laugh, because I was on a podcast years ago with a good friend of mine, Graham Cooling, who runs the, oh my God, what's his podcast called? I'll pop it in the show notes, because Yelling at Concrete. But he's what I consider to be the definition of like your very stereotypical like artsy art, and I mean that in like the most loving way, because he's an incredible human. We met glass washing in a bar, and we still keep in touch. It's bizarre. Tremendous beard. Anyhow, I was on the podcast and we were talking. It was just at the point where I started to like take off and sell books and do that kind of stuff. And we had this chat because he was like, I don't know how you do it. And I went, what do you mean? And he went, well, when I have a finished piece that I'm really happy with, the minute someone even says to me, I will buy that off of you, I burn it. And he wasn't joking. Like, he had pieces that he just burned because someone wanted to buy it, because he believes for himself that art is in the process, in the creation, in like that, and that no one should own art through, I guess, capitalism through the exchange of money. Like, it was just a fundamental belief. Like, he takes to releasing a like a tiny little magazine. There's a word from that is again like escaping me. I'm not well. A tiny little magazine that he literally will do every month, put a load of effort into it, pay to have all these things printed. He'll post them through different people's doors. No plan or strategy or address, just so people can see it, and then he'll leave it. And he won't want feedback. He won't nothing else. Like, that's just what he does. He just randomly delivers like small little magazines to people every month. And I think there's something so pure and so genuine in that, because it's him doing him. Like, do you know what I mean? There's no like, it's the thing that he wants to do. It's the thing that he believes in. There's lots of stuff in there that has a lot of political messages and stuff, because that's what he wants to follow. But like, that's
he's still getting something from it, though, isn't he?
Yeah, and
it might not be money. Exactly. He's still getting something from it.
Exactly. And so, yeah, the other side of that, it's we're going in all sort of different directions now, but trying to to bring this to a sum up. Like, I think most of the whole selling out argument comes from people who are either jealous of what you're doing, or are very, very quick to judge with no understanding of what it is. And I think if you are serious about wanting this to be a thing for you, like, again, professional, amateur, not derogatory terms, but just however you choose to pursue art, fucking go for it and do it. And the final thing, final 1.5 things I'll say is there is an Instagram channel I highly recommend people following. Can't remember off the top of my head, but it's this lovely, lovely lady who is the definition of an artist, and she videos every day on like giving herself permission and imposter syndrome and all this kind of stuff, and she's so pure and it's so beautiful, and I will drop that in the show notes. But the other thing that I want to close with is I want to add Deathbed Dan to the conversation.
I was thinking about Deathbed Dan the other day.
Well, he is truly why I've gone as far as I've gone and why I've pursued this stuff so diligently. I think a big reason of why I'm okay pissing people off and like following my own path, because the truth of the matter is, without this going down, like, because I see this as a positive thing, but I know it's very easy to take it out of context and put negatively.
Because it's a very stoic idea, and stoicism is very polarizing.
Yeah. I think. So one day you're going to blink and you're going to be in your later years, hopefully, like, we wish that for everyone. What is it that you could be doing today that you can look back on and be proud of doing? And what you're currently not doing that you're going to look back on and think, I wish I'd done that. And that is, it's powerful enough for me to drop in and to, like, if I'm having like a really rough day, I will kind of go like, okay, can I push myself further today? And oftentimes you can't. Oftentimes you're unwell and that kind of stuff happens. But like I remember like being 15, blinking, and I'm now 32. Like life doesn't wait for you. So pursue the things that you love, pursue the things you're passionate about, pursue the things that bring you joy, because the alternative is not.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's that simple and it's that hard.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to add to art versus commerce before we wrap up this week's very, very comprehensive episode with Tetris and coughing and wanking into the wind and wanking into sandboxes
and coming loudly and going down on your own path? I'm so glad I got to bring that up, because I didn't want to interrupt you, but I almost choked on my own tongue when you said going down on your own path. Yeah. There was something, that was what I was going to say. I do think it's important that everybody have some form of outlet that is in some way just for them.
Yes.
So like, you know, there's lots of stuff I do creatively that I mean, I have an external locus of validation, so I'll always show Dan and my sister and Miles and be like, tell me I'm good.
Good job. Like, have a cookie.
Yes, please. But it's not for like, you know, wider consumption. It's just for me. So like scrapbooking, cross stitching, painting, like just, it's just something that I do for a lot of people. That's like maybe writing in a journal. Like writing a diary is a creative process.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a way for you to kind of keep your hand like on your integrity, is just knowing that, like, you know, you're still pure, you're still doing all the things. Money isn't the devil. Like, money is an amplifier of character. It's as simple as that. Like, it isn't, money is not the evil. Humans,
you are the evil. Yeah, couldn't put it on myself.
So yeah, just you know, be true to yourself. Yeah,
do you enjoy life?
Yeah. Sorry, there was a really weird lag where, like, I'm sure for you it didn't, but my internet went weird and you did like a really weird long mechanical laugh, and then it just cut to you being like,
I hope that stays in.
It won't. It'll definitely be my internet.
Okay, well, we'll bring this round. And so for people who, in case you haven't realized, in case you don't know, in case you're
Activated Authors is on Discord and it's free.
Activated Authors on Discord and it's free. So what does that mean for you? That means you can jump over to activatedauthors.com and it's literally right at the top of the website, or you can go onto /join where it's got a bit more information. And we've literally just got a whole community filled with channels dedicated to helping you realize your activated author dreams. So we've got stuff in there that's just general for fun to socialize with other people. We've got channels on publishing, on business. We've got genre channels. And we've also got the AA Plus membership that you can choose to join should you wish, but there's literally no obligation. Pretty much the whole of the foundation of this Discord is free for you to jump in, get involved. And I will say, like, one of the reasons I jumped on over here is because Facebook and other places are so freaking noisy. Like, it's one of the benefits of being in a group like this is you can just be heard. And you can just have people there who are in the same position as you, that are asking the same questions, that have the answers that you're looking for. And like the number one most amazing thing about this community is fucking Dan and Sam are in it. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're actually in it. Like, you can jump in and be like, what's up, Dan? And I can be like, hey, man or woman or person, how's it going? And you can be like, hey, Sam. And Sam can be like, how does Discord work?
Yeah, about 2 days later, probably. I'm like, I didn't realize I got a notification.
Uh-oh.
I didn't know. Why am I not administrative? Why have I been given responsibilities in an environment that I don't understand?
Oh, I ask that every day.
Also, hi.
Oh, excuse me. So yeah, join us over at activatedauthors.com, and that is where we are. Other than that, there's nothing left to say other than a massive thank you to you, the listeners, for tuning in. We appreciate you and the time you choose to spend with us each and every week. As always, if you're looking to level up your writing, activate your author career, and join me and Sam over at Discord, head over to activatedauthors.com to find out all about our community, our resources, and everything else that we've bloody got going on. One more time from myself and from Samantha Frost. We will see you next week.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Activate your energy.
Hope that my sweet sucking doesn't make it onto the microphone. And that's the sweet that I'm sucking and not my sweet sucking.
You happy with that?
I'm not unhappy.
You know I'm putting that at the end of the episode, right?
One would assume.